welcome to Innovate Pasadena Presents, where we sit down with some of the Pasadena community's creators and innovators to discuss their experiences. I'm your host today, Beth Kuchar, Chairperson of Innovate Pasadena. And today I'm joined by Janelle Wellons, who is an instrument operations engineer at NASA JPL here in Pasadena. Hi, Janelle. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to get into what it is that you do at NASA, what led you to NASA and aerospace engineering as a career. But I do want to first mention how we connected, because to me, it kind of highlights one of the things that I think is so great about Pasadena and so random. One of our board members actually put your name out there and said, she's a great person to talk to. You should reach out. And that was kind of like all we knew. So we did reach out, and how you came about is really kind of funny. Could you share that?
Sure, it is kind of funny. I was on my way back from actually taking some promo shots for a podcast I'm doing with some friends. And I had on this white, like astronaut flight suit. And I'm just hungry, like it's the end of the day. So I stopped by this burger place I've never been to before. It's local in Pasadena. And I go in there, forgetting that I had on this getup. So, of course, people were kind of looking at me like, what's going on over there? And this one gentleman started to ask me questions. He said, "Hey, do you work at JPL?" He knew about JPL, and we were talking about my love for inspiring kids and this kind of stuff. And he mentioned that it might be a good idea to connect with his wife. And so we did, and that's kind of how it all started. And now I'm here.
And his wife is with the city of Pasadena, and they're involved with Innovate Pasadena. So it's like all serendipitous encounters here. I mean, I thought that was great because, it's like in Pasadena, you never know if you're going to run into a rocket scientist at line for French fries. So,
Right.
so reading your bio, kind of talking with you, you went to MIT and studied aerospace engineering. Did you always want to be an engineer?
Oh no. I mean, I knew what engineering was, thankfully, because of Bring Your Child to Work Day. My mom would bring me in when I was a kid. I was exposed to the work that her colleagues did, even though she herself was not an engineer. So it did make me aware that engineers are pretty cool and it could be a possible path for me later in life. But honestly, it was not really something that I was locked in for me as a kid. I was one of those students who didn't know what I wanted. I was just here for the ride, and I knew that I enjoyed learning and I loved learning, whether that be literature or art, history. I mean, I was there for it all. I wasn't just a math and science person. And so, really, the turning point for me was junior year of high school, when all of my classmates were beginning to think more seriously about what they wanted to do in the future. We had to make decisions. If you wanted to go to college, applications were coming up. And so, this cold reality that I had to actually make a plan kind of hit me hard. And when I started to receive mail my junior year of high school, coming from colleges all over the country, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do with all of it. In fact, most of it ended up underneath my bed. And so on one of these particular days, I had gotten my mail, I had a stack, and on the top of it, there was a pamphlet for this school called the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I never heard of it. So it was going in the trash can. And on my way to walk it over, my mom caught me. And that was a fateful moment it changed my entire life, because we looked at the pamphlet and it was talking about this summer program for juniors going into their senior year. You're going to learn about STEM, engineering, you're going to take classes on literature, and it's going to be on the campus of MIT with about 70 other students just like you. And so you just had to apply. And if you got in, all expenses paid, your summer was set up. And so my mom, of course, she's like, "You're applying to this." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, write these essays, got to get your teacher recommendations." I'm like, fine, I did it. I turned it in night before, procrastinator that I am. And I totally forgot about it. until, time had gone on and one of my friends, one of my classmates said, "What are you all doing this summer?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to run cross country." And then suddenly remembered this application and said, "Oh, but I might be going to this school called MIT over the summer if I get accepted into their program." They said, "MIT? Do you understand how difficult it is to get into that school, let alone its programs?" And I didn't. And so for the first time ever, I actually looked it up and the statistics were staggering. I mean, they had over 2,000 applicants the year before, and they accepted only one of them from the state of New Jersey the previous year. Why would they choose me? I didn't have straight A's. I strived to, but I was not perfect. There were people who had better SAT scores than me. There were people within my own class who were better than me. So I was not going to be the candidate for MIT, this amazing, incredible school, world renowned. So it was a wrap for me. I told my mom that night, "You wasted my time. I told you I shouldn't have wasted my time filling out this stuff." And so when she called me that spring, as I was about to come home from track practice, saying, "Oh, you've got this package," I'm like, "Why are you getting so excited about this?" She urged me to come home. So I did. And she's in the doorway. She's got this package in her hand and she's rushing me. "Janelle, come open this." Like, "Mom, but we went over this. I'm not getting accepted into this MIT program." And she looked at me and said, "Janelle, they don't send you a package to tell you you didn't get in." And oh my gosh. Wait, I think she's right. So I ripped it open and read the first word and it said congratulations. And that word was the start of my journey, something I never knew was possible. This school I had never heard of, but my mom encouraged me to take a chance and look at where I am now.
That is amazing. That and to go from not knowing anything about MIT to like it seems like it opened a whole new world for you. Is this where you kind of began to get more of an awareness of aerospace engineering and figure out your career path?
Yeah, absolutely. So, after doing that program, I fell in love with MIT. It's strange buildings, it's strange students. I'm sorry, I could say that because I was one of them. And, the quirkiness, the desire to learn, to explore new things, the opportunities. I loved it. So I went from not knowing what to do with my life to knowing I wanted to go to school at MIT. So, of course, I'm applying, early action. I'm sweating every day. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to get in." I was doing these little freakouts in the car every day. I know my parents were sick of hearing me talk about this, but I did get accepted and I did end up going there. But when I got there, I kind of had the same problem that I had when I was in high school, being that I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I had always loved math. I thought I wanted to become a theoretical mathematician. And I talked to upperclassmen about what that would look like career wise. And they told me about, well, you're going to have to commit to getting your PhD and you're going to have to work really hard and your work may not play out the way you'd like for it during your lifetime. And I'm thinking of these things and also hearing, MIT is an engineering school and they have a bunch of introductory classes. Take one, see what you think. And so I took that advice. There were a lot of choices. You got computer engineering, electrical, mechanical, chemical, biological. I mean, the list was endless. But aerospace engineering stood out to me because it's space. I mean, who doesn't think that space is a little cool? So I go to that class and I'm there on the first day and the professor's going over the syllabus and he's talking about, these are the things we're going to learn throughout the year. We're going to learn the rocket equation. We're going to learn how planes fly. We're going to do projects. And we're also going to learn a little bit about the history of space flight as well. And he shows this photo of an astronaut fixing the Hubble telescope in space. I'm looking at this like, wow, like this is cool. This is what aerospace engineers do. But I never thought that he would blow my mind further by saying he was the astronaut in the photo. Like, I am in the same room as an astronaut. I didn't know anyone who worked for NASA. I didn't know anyone who knew anyone who worked for NASA. And all of a sudden, I'm in the same room as someone who's been to space. And it was one of those moments in life where you're kind of given this option. I like to think of it like I love Harry Potter growing up. Harry was in this awful situation. I was not in an awful situation. But one night, this giant breaks into his home and says, Harry, you're a wizard. Come with me. And he had an option. Do you come with the giant? I didn't know what I was going to be getting myself into. But he said yes. And look where it took him. And this was my moment. This was the beginning of my story. And I said yes. And that's what got me on this path of learning about aerospace engineering, which in turn introduced me to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
That is awesome. And I love the comparison to Harry Potter, one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
So I do have to ask because, for years now, there's been quite a lot of talk about what an engineer looks like. And, several years back, there was the I Look Like an Engineer movement, just trying to break down stereotypes and promoting diversity in all engineering fields. So as a woman of color in STEM, what kinds of struggles have you faced or experienced in the industry? And how do you handle that? And how do you talk to others about addressing that and pursuing that dream and saying yes?
Sure. Yeah, I think at this point, it's no secret that there are people who are underrepresented in fields such as aerospace engineering and other STEM fields as well. And so going through school and enjoying these types of topics, I did find myself sometimes being I was the only Black person, perhaps, or one of few women who were in these classes. And, it wasn't always easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. As much as looking back at our time in middle school, high school, it feels like there were no responsibilities. Life was easier then, no bills to pay. I look back at it and I remember other things like how difficult it was to try and uphold your social standing while being teased by your peers who claimed that your race didn't bother them, but were constantly making jokes at your expense. And I was a doormat. I'll admit it. I just let it happen. Everyone was just joking. Oh, I'm blacker than you. Well, black on the outside, white on the inside. Isn't that right, Janelle? These comments, after they're continuously hurled at you, even if they're jokes, after a while, they're going to affect you. They're going to affect your self-esteem. They're going to make you question whether you belong in these spaces. Are you really accepted? And so when I got to MIT, this was another environment where, minorities are not necessarily prevalent, but I ended up finding this community of students who purposefully came together so that we could share in our MIT journeys. And let me tell you that changed my entire life. I went from just accepting that I was going to always be an other to learning that I could actually do something about it. And so now that I'm here at JPL and I see that there is work to go, I have found ways to always make that reality that I'm looking for, seeing a more diverse future for this industry in general. I am finding ways to do that. So I'm the president of the Black Excellence Strategic Team. It's one of JPL's many employee resource groups. I started it with some friends. I moved out to California. I'm alone. I'm kind of scared. I'm looking around. I don't see many people like me. And there was an organization, but it wasn't as active at the time. And we proposed, how about you give it to us? We're just looking to build community and make people feel home in a lot of senses. And since then, we've gone from the community building to the actual game changers. And we are affecting lab-wide policy to help not only encourage young people who look like myself, who look like, they don't traditionally fit in these roles, to apply to places like JPL. And when they get there, we're here waiting for them with open arms to welcome them so that they want to stay.
I love that. That is amazing. And, I'm so happy that you kind of pursued this journey. You kept pushing through because it sounds like you're inspiring others and you're working hard to share your experiences to make sure that others take the opportunities that are out there and, don't back down, and they keep pursuing their dreams. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
So going back to the NASA, you came out to California, knew you wanted to be at NASA JPL. You're an instrument operations engineer now. Tell us what that means. What do you do? What's a typical day for you like?
Well, typical day in a life. You hope that your days are typical as an instrument operations engineer, because essentially it's my job to, we build these spacecraft at JPL. JPL is a place that's known for space robotics. Let's explore the universe and learn more things about it. And so, you get this spacecraft and it's the vehicle takes you from point A to point B. And it also keeps you alive, supplies you your power, all these things. Then you have the instruments, and the instruments are fun. The instruments are answering the why questions that all the scientists are raising. Why are things like this? How can we learn more? They measure science data that is useful for scientists on the ground to better understand the places that we're visiting, including our own planet Earth. And so it's my job to actually operate these instruments that are on these spacecraft once they actually get out there to space. And so we're generating commands using our computers, and in fact, in COVID times, from my room, which is crazy. And we're listening to the requests, we're turning those into machine language, the ones and zeros the instruments can understand, getting them out there in space, and then making sure that what we planned to happen actually did happen. And so the typical day is coming in and doing those activities, sending our commands, checking our health and safety reports, which come in the form of plots. I love all these little colorful plots on my screens. Like, okay, everything looks good there. And also numbers and yellow and red alarms that allow us to know if something's gone wrong, because I'm a person. I may have like hundreds of telemetry, we call it, channels to look after. So I also need some help from programs and software to let me know I need to pay attention to something. And so that's actually one half of my job, doing those operations each day. And the reason why I said it's good for it to be typical is because the other part of my job is, if things are not typical, if things are not going as planned, it's also our job to figure out why and then make some kind of resolution, try and fix it. And it's a very exciting job, because you feel like you are truly a part of these missions and their success. It's out there in space, and you are in the loop for making it happen. And I work on some instruments that aren't in space yet. They're being developed right now on the ground, and it's really amazing to be involved in that process, to test them, to make sure everything works, because we have a way to inform how we're going to operate it before it actually gets to space.
So I'm curious, what is one of your favorite projects, or something, the most interesting thing that you've been able to work on? It sounds like all of it is interesting, but do you have a favorite?
Oh, so I've been working for JPL for almost 5 years, which is kind of wild. And in that time, I've been able to work on 3 missions observing our own planet Earth, 1 mission that's currently at the moon right now, and a mission to Saturn. And every single one of them have been exciting. But if I had to just choose, it's so hard to choose. But, I'm going to have to give it up for the Cassini mission to Saturn, because this was my welcome to JPL. I was this nervous, engineer, moved out here. I see the sign, next exit, NASA JPL. My heart is racing. Oh my gosh, what is an instrument operations engineer? I don't even know. I've never operated something in space. But, I get there, and the team is waiting to just say hello. They're so happy to see me. They wrote on my whiteboard, and they're like, we are going to teach you what it means to operate something in space. And it was with this incredible mission that had been in space for almost 2 decades. I was, if not the last person, one of the last people to join the flight team, where I got to see the fruition of all of this team's amazing work come to head with the grand finale where Cassini had run out of fuel and it was going to dive in between Saturn's atmosphere rings for the first time ever, going out, pointing its antenna back to Earth to communicate its final farewell. I mean, there's nothing like the magical feeling it was to be a part of that, to be at Caltech watching with colleagues and people who had worked on this mission for years, seeing my team lead crying when we lost the signal. It's something we expected to happen, but it's a memory. The memories will always stay with me, and I appreciate and love that team so much for what they've taught me and how I've been able to bring that forward to the missions I work on today.
Making me teary-eyed just thinking about it. It's like another member of the team said
Really
their final
is.
farewell. So in addition to all of this that you do every day and handling any kind of unforeseen issues that might come up, and I assume you're probably sometimes on call to handle
Yes.
things at odd hours. So,
Oh, yeah.
no pressure.
I've definitely got a
Um,
phone call while I was in the shower and another one in 2 a.m. when but it's exciting to answer them. People rely on you to do the right thing because spacecraft and instruments, they don't sleep. So that sometimes means that you can't either.
Yeah, got to get used to it. Well,
Hmm.
in addition to all of that, you also dedicate a lot of your free time to various volunteer efforts. And I know you do a lot of STEM outreach and a lot of work with youth community. Can you tell me about some of those projects that you're working on, some of those volunteer efforts?
Sure. And like I said earlier, you don't get all the way here to NASA with a story like mine, where it was just connecting the dots and hoping for the best, and then not try and bring that same community with you. Of course, I have to share this. Of course, I need to encourage these other students. And so when I got here, I immediately wanted to find ways to be able to tell others about the work that I was doing. And so I was doing a lot of classroom, school, just going in. I'm not sure. I don't know everything. I'm new, but I'm going to try my best just to get kids excited and let them know you've got NASA in your backyard. And so I've done many, many of those types of events. I still do them to this day, but I was also curious about how I could make a greater impact. And that's what got me involved with things like joining the board of the YWCA, which has now become the YWCA Glendale and Pasadena. They join forces, which is amazing because it increases our reach. And there's programming for girls in STEM, the Tech Girls program, and I meet with the staff to talk about how we can bring in inspirational speakers, allow the girls to do hands-on projects and more. And I have so many stories. I've taught a space camp in Korea with friends. It was incredible. It was the best vacation I've ever had in my entire life because there was a point to it. There was purpose. It felt good. It felt like I was recharging my batteries. And I do my best to just help where I can. And outreach is something I will never stop doing because it's so vital and important to who I am and the vision I have for the future.
That is amazing. Space Camp in Korea. I kind of want to hear just a little bit more about that because that sounds like an amazing experience.
Well, there was this space camp. Basically, every summer has programming for students, for elementary school, middle school students, and when they got word that there was a JPLer, a Korean JPLer, who had come and seen the observatory and said, "Hey, maybe we can do something." That's kind of how it got started. And so, through my work on Cassini, actually, I met this amazing woman. Her name is Morgan, and she invited me to come on this trip to teach these kids a little bit about space, launching bottle rockets, egg drop challenges, engineering. How do you drive a rover? And we just spent this time with these kids, getting to know them, letting them get to know us with the help of incredible and amazing staff at the facility. And it was just an amazing time.
That is very cool. Well, Pasadena is lucky to have you. We want to see more of your, outreach efforts here. I know you work very hard. I'm curious, as a California transplant from the East Coast, what do you like about Pasadena and this area?
I love the fact that there is so much here. Man, I could not have imagined that California would be this exciting. I walk around, even just in my immediate neighborhood, especially with COVID, I decided to get to know where I actually live because I'm normally in my car. My neighbors have these absolutely gorgeous gardens with roses and plants and cactuses. I did not see this in my everyday life in New Jersey, I can tell you. And you've got Caltech right there. You've got JPL. I mean, what doesn't Pasadena have? Especially the mountain views. I absolutely love waking up and looking out my window and seeing mountains. I don't think I ever really seen mountains until I got here, and they're in my backyard, so I could go hiking and camping, and there's just so much to do and see, and I'm so happy to be a part of the community.
So I'm curious, we're wrapping up a little bit here, but are there any words of encouragement or pieces of advice that you would want to share to kids who are looking to pursue a career in engineering, or even people who maybe are making a switch, but what advice do you have from your experiences that you've shared with us today?
Never give up on yourself. It is so easy for us to look at all of our failings and our shortcomings and letting that drive our decisions. And it's sad that we tell ourselves we're not good enough, just like I did when I was thinking about my application to MIT. And it stops us from even finding out if maybe we were going to be accepted. We would be a part of a great program. We can do it. We have to switch to the mindset of thinking about our delta. It's a math term. I love math. Delta means change. What is the me of today compared to the me of tomorrow? How can I become better? It's not so much about where you started, but it's about where you're going and where you want to go. And I think by focusing on our personal delta and less about everything around us, our peers, what they're doing, how they're better than me, the more likely we are to reach our own goals and dreams.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, any last minute calls to people who are interested in volunteering or donating their time, or getting involved in some way and really being inspired by those words?
Absolutely. Please reach out to me. I am always available. Instagram at it's Janelle, ITSJANELLIE. And I also have a website, which I would love for you to visit, where I list all of my social media, my LinkedIn, and email if you'd like to get in contact. I can talk about all sorts of things like how to get involved, what does it mean to be a volunteer, and I can also speak for your schools and organizations if you'll have me.
Awesome. We look forward to more from you. And Janelle, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and for being a role model for our future engineers and innovators.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. And thanks to everyone watching today. Stay innovative, Pasadena.